So Eleanor, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you on. It was funny, we met kind of in here actually when you recorded with Ali, and then we obviously chatted, got along. I thought it was super interesting, some of the stuff you obviously do. What is your official label? You're a sex educator.
Yes, certified sex educator and sensual movement practitioner as well.
Yeah. And you were saying before is this all, can we talk about this, like just the thing we were just literally chatting about, how you want to open up into this realm of doing different stuff to help people last longer, look better, feel better, get better sex?
Totally. So, I mean, obviously my main work is sex education, but I was just joking around before that I've got this idea for just like a series of reels. I think just little mini lessons on exercises and stretches that you can do so that you can last better, last longer. Not necessarily in terms of like how long you can last before you but you can actually have the stamina to like keep on going. Because I had people asking me like, how do I ride dick? Because I get too tired. How do I last, Eleanor? And so that's in the works. I'm going to start teaching people some stamina moves, Yeah. They can really just last up there.
I feel it. Is that one of the more common things you get asked, is like how to last longer, not like stamina wise, but just like ejaculating or orgasming?
Yeah, absolutely. I get people asking me how to last longer, just how to have more pleasure, how to bring their partners more pleasure, if they're wrong or broken, or if there's something, wrong with their sexuality. Most people think that it's only them that is going through something, like they can't orgasm or things like that. So a lot of my DMs are all about a whole myriad of questions like that.
Is this mostly from girls or guys?
Both.
Both?
Yeah.
Does it lean more towards one or the other, or is it?
Well, my audience is predominantly female, I would say, but I do have a decent chunk of men who are just like so on board with what I teach and have learnt a lot. So it's pretty cool.
It goes either way.
Mm-hmm,
How does one get into this path? When were you like, all right,
this is my life.
This is my life. This is what I'm doing. Was it like a turning point, or is it just?
It was a bit of a journey. So it sort of unfolded. And I would say that it sort of began when I started pole dancing years ago. This was probably when I was about 18. I started going to pole dancing classes and became utterly addicted to it. So obsessed. And I went to all of the classes, went all through the levels up to like high advanced and elite. And I was so into it that I ended up buying a studio and running a studio for 4 years. And so I had all of this experience with working with women who were, feeling not super sexy in their body and wanted to feel a little bit sexier, wanted to do something that was fitness but a little bit more fun. And so I ran the studio for 4 years and had so many fun experiences watching women kind of get really, really confident. And then I decided to sell that studio because I wanted to focus less on like the performative side of pole dancing and movement, and I wanted to focus more on the embodied side. And so that kind of started my journey to create my own movement practice, which I called sensual movement. And then from there I studied life coaching, and then from there I studied sex education and coaching, and it just kind of
snowballed into what it is now.
Snowballed, yeah.
Were you like, the studio was just to teach girls how to dance? Were you actually like dancing, like pole dancing in like at a event or like a bar? It was just the actual
just for fitness.
Fitness,
yeah. So it was pure fitness. I competed in some competitions in like the state level a little bit, and that was a really, really popular thing at the time, competing, less than performing in clubs. Some people did for sure, but most people came to the studio because they just wanted some sort of fitness and because it was really fun.
Yeah. Do you feel like there's a stigma around it?
Absolutely. Yeah. I pretended for, I think, the first like 6 months or so of going, like attending classes as a student, I just said to my family like, oh, I'm going to an alternative dance class, which wasn't a lie.
No, yeah.
It wasn't a lie.
I get that for sure.
And then eventually I was like, oh, fuck it. It's pole dancing and I really like it, so I don't care.
But I guess like that's the thing. If you're doing it for fitness and it's not in front of a heap of guys waving money and stuff, it's like there's a very big, and it's like fine either way, but like it's for your parents to understand that would probably make them feel better.
Totally. And I think for a while there, before I got really comfortable with like sex positivity and all of that, I really lent on the idea that pole was going to one day be in the Olympics, and, you know, people were like petitioning to get into the Olympics. And I was like, yeah, guys, it's a really serious sport, which like it's full athlete level. Like it is really cool. It's really intense, very sort of contortionist, gymnast, circus inspired kind of movement. But I definitely lent on that for a while to try and make people kind of take me more seriously for doing it. But at the end of the day, I'm like, I just like to roll around on the floor. It's really fun, and flip upside down in like booty shorts and 8-inch heels. It's a good time.
Yeah, why not?
You know, it's fun. So I kind of eventually got over that and just owned it.
But I guess that's the thing. It's like the feeling that you get from doing that is the thing you are looking for, not the actual action of doing it. It's like, that's, I guess, what the embodiment is. It's like people aren't pole dancing because obviously they would enjoy part of pole dancing, but it's like that makes them feel confident, makes them feel sexy, it makes them feel seen.
Yeah.
You know, like, how do you transfer that into like these obviously courses and stuff you run now that takes away the stigma of pole dancing but still gives these girls the same feeling?
Definitely. And like I had so many students come to me because they wanted to work on feeling more confident and sexy in their body, but in a way that wasn't for anyone else. It wasn't for the benefit of another person. And we weren't performing for someone and going, oh, I need to show up and look really, really sexy for that person. Instead, it's like this room full of women and we're just performing to feel really, really good for ourselves. And yeah, if you want to show someone else and share that with someone, amazing. But at the start of it, at the crux of it is it's for you and it feels really, really good for you. And that's such a big difference. And I think a lot of people assume that it's all about being sexy for someone else.
Yeah.
And so at the core of my work, and the reason that I actually started my own business after selling that studio was because I wanted it to come back to embodiment and feeling like this is for me and I can share my sexuality, my sensuality, my expression if I want to, but it starts with me. It's not all about performing for the other.
Yeah, and I guess that's the byproduct of feeling sexy in yourself, is other people will obviously feel that and see that. But it's like first you have to be, I want to be sexy and feel good for me, and then the byproduct of that is people probably think I'm sexy and confident and feel good. But like you said, it's like starting from the internal to the external when you do it.
You become magnetic. You know, you start to feel so in touch with yourself that kind of like exudes out of you, and then people are magnetized to you as a result. But it's a really different energy when you're like, I'm trying to make you like attracted to me, or you just are because of what kind of exudes from me.
It's like the whole, when you're confident in yourself and you don't need someone, that's when they're like, hey,
exactly,
how are you going?
Hey.
Could I get a piece of that kind of thing?
Totally.
It's like I always joke around, like probably one of the best ways to pick up chicks, and this, like, let me finish it with first, like have a girlfriend, because then it's like you seem like this, or he's happy within himself, or he's comfortable, he's confident. Like that's such an attractive trait that I think girls and guys, like both ways, will play on that, because it's like when you see someone that's very much happy within themselves or in a good relationship, for the outside, people go, oh, I want a piece of that.
I want some of that.
Yeah, exactly. But you can be that without having another person in your life.
Yeah.
It's like if you go out and you be confident and you be so, I guess, content with who you are, that's more going to be the time when someone's going to come up and go, hey, how are you going? Instead of like going out searching for that validation through other people.
Yes, that's it.
How do you, I guess, teach, or what's one of the biggest things you teach to help women and men feel more validated from themselves, not an external force or person?
Well, so my work always stems from like sexuality and sensuality. And so for this question, I would say that when it comes to kind of, I guess, avoiding that trap of seeking validation externally, is I always say stop outsourcing your pleasure. Because we have this tendency, especially in relationships, but even outside, is we kind of assume that our sex and our pleasure is something that someone else provides us. And so we don't actually kind of cultivate it for ourselves. And so if you start to really cultivate your own pleasure, your own sexuality, and you're not looking for someone else to validate it or to provide it for you, that's when you can start to really kind of reclaim it and own it. And then when it comes to, dating as well, I see so many people dating purely for validation. And, you know, they might say like, oh yeah, I'm looking for my life partner. And like, I want to get married and I want to have kids and I want this and I want that. But then they're accepting like the bare minimum from someone and just like little breadcrumbs just because they want validation. And I understand it can be so difficult when you're like, I just want to feel desired and I want to feel loved and I want to feel cared for, but you're only getting like that much. It takes a lot of effort and a lot of self-awareness to go, actually, I'm not going to accept these breadcrumbs because I want the whole damn cake. And you have to put in so many boundaries in order to kind of hold out for the cake.
And I think you also need to be okay with being by yourself in those times, because how often do you see someone come out of a bad relationship and go straight into another relationship? And it's like you haven't done the work to figure out what you actually need and you don't want to be alone. So you just go for something else that's subpar because you haven't actually worked out yourself, or like you say, giving yourself that self-love and understand, what do I need? What do I want? And you're like, no, I haven't done that. But now I'm just getting validation from another person who's not really giving me what I need again. But and they just go along in this subpar relationship because they'd rather do that. What is it? It's like people would rather like a nice lie than a harsh truth. And I think people get so stuck in these like nice lies, like, oh, it's fine, he's fine, he treats me all right.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
It's okay.
It's like, it's fine. We go out for dinner like once every like month and it's cool. Like, you know what I mean? And they get stuck in that. And then it's like, I don't think there's anything worse than like seeing some friends or people you love in a bad relationship, and there's nothing better than seeing people you love in a good relationship. Like there's something that when you see people and you're like, that's yes, keep doing that.
Totally.
But it's like, I guess we all can become that or go into that. But like you said, it's like those little things that I think you need to be self-aware enough to actually figure them out.
Otherwise you just end up breaking your own heart again and again, because you're not setting those boundaries and really recognizing, this is actually what I'm craving in a relationship, in a partnership. This is what I want. And if the person in front of me isn't providing that or doesn't have a shared vision for our future, then it can be hard to say, actually, sorry, I'm going to sort of actually be on my own instead of with you, because we want to be with someone. And so that can be really difficult, but it's so worth it. And like you said, it's so difficult when you see your friends just not having boundaries and not allowing themselves to be properly loved and be treated well. When you see your friends being treated poorly and accepting that behavior, it's crushing. And then like you said as well, when you see your friends in beautiful relationships, it's like, oh, so heartwarming.
Bless.
Yeah, bless.
And it's, you know, when some people have to go through the shit to realize that that wasn't right. Like, you can't tell someone that's in love with someone that maybe they shouldn't be, that, hey, maybe look at this, or like look at it from a different angle, because then they feel like they're getting, it's like, it's a very touchy subject to try and help a friend out of a bad relationship without feeling like you're just throwing judgment on what they have, especially when they're in love with the person, as good or bad as it may be.
Totally.
How do you find, because do you deal mainly with individual people or couples?
Mainly with individuals. Yeah. I have worked with some couples in the past, and a lot of couples sort of take my courses. But I have worked one-on-one with people a lot.
Mainly, do you find it easier or harder when with dealing with couples or just people individually?
So I prefer working with individuals, I think. With couples, they both need to be 100% in. And often it's a little bit imbalanced. And I actually can't tell you the amount of times, Dean, I've had individual clients come to me and they're wanting to do like a 3-month coaching. And the first thing that they say in the first session is like, oh, I just want to have like better sex with my partner and I want to be even sexier and blah, blah, blah. And I have to coach them like, this is for you. Like, we don't have to think about the external. Yes, of course, that can come later, your relationship, but I want to focus on you first and your connection with your sexuality. And then the amount of times I've had clients by session 2 or 3, they're like, actually, I think that I need to dump my boyfriend. Can you please help me go through that? And it's never like me saying your boyfriend sucks, you should dump him. I've never said that. It's just the fact that I ask them these questions about what behavior they're accepting. what they desire in a relationship, how they think they deserve to be treated. And it's almost like it just creates this little percolation. And then 2 weeks later, we have a second call or a third call for our coaching series. And they're like, huh, turns out my boyfriend sucks. And I need to dump him. And so I've actually coached a lot of people through that process. And I think that's a really profound thing for people to realize, oh, I'm in a relationship that really isn't serving me. And it wasn't until I came back to myself and really took the time to figure out what are my desires and how do I deserve to be treated, and then reflected and went, oh, actually, I'm not being treated very well at all. And this isn't what I want. And this person clearly doesn't care about me. And then they decide, okay, I've got to end this.
Because I think you only have your own perspective on a relationship and your own level of what a good relationship is. And then if someone asks questions about it where you're like, actually, that doesn't happen or this doesn't happen, you go, maybe it's not right.
Yeah.
You start looking more, because I guess when they would come to you as like a couple, they're like, okay, maybe if we, it's like you're almost trying to change someone into fitting into what you need. But I feel like in good relationships, like I was talking to a friend about this, and there's a big difference between changing someone and growing with someone.
Yeah.
And I feel like when you're trying to change someone in a relationship, that's changing who they are. When you're growing with them, it's like you're both balancing how you're progressing as people. It's not just being like, you do this, I don't like it, you need to stop doing this.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, you do this, and then it's like that back and forth of tick for tack kind of mentality that doesn't work. And I think, like you say, it's that time of just like, okay, well, maybe it's just not my person, and being okay with them not being your person.
Totally. That's the thing. Like, we're not going to be for everyone, and everyone isn't going to be for us. And I think a lot of people really get their feelings hurt because they're like, oh gosh, this person that I have put up on this pedestal, they're not treating me this way, or they clearly don't like me as much as I like them, and we make it all about us. Like, I'm not good enough. Yeah. But if we just look around and we go, okay, well, 99.9% of the people in the world, I'm not going to want to be in a relationship with. But that's not because they're all terrible. It's just because it's not the right match. And that's okay. I'm not going to be for everyone. Not everyone has to be for me either.
Yeah, it's being okay with that. I've been playing around this idea about like unconditional love and how we feel like our love trumps other people's love. So just say, for example, you meet someone, you fall in love with them, they don't find like that you're their person, they want to leave. It's like still being able to love that person but not be with them, instead of going like, oh, you don't want to be with me, I don't love you now. It's like that response of like being hurt because you feel rejection, but then spitting that back at them and kind of throwing hate at them, where it's like, that's okay, I can still love you, you're still a good person, this isn't the right match, and then moving on. But you need it, like, it's being very self-aware in those circumstances, but also the idea is like, why is it because I want something and you don't, my emotions trump your emotions? Like, why is it because you don't want this, I want this, like I have the right to be annoyed at you? When it's like, you could have the right to be annoyed at me because I want something you don't. Like, you shouldn't have the right, but it's like you can want different things, and that's not a good or a bad thing. It's just different. And it's like accepting that and then being able to actually move apart peacefully.
I think we're just so uncomfortable with feeling rejection that it's like, I can't sit with the fact that I really care about you and that you don't care about me in that same way, at that same level. And so I get defensive and I decide, actually, I hate you and you're ugly. Because that just makes us feel a little bit better, because we want them to feel as hurt as we feel by not being loved by them. And it's
like a
really
defense mechanism, isn't it? Yeah.
It really is,
It's like, you hurt me, so I'll hurt you. And I think it's when you get to that point where you can be aware enough to be like, you don't want this, that's okay. I still love you. Go about and do what you need to do.
I think that we have a problem with our English language in that we only have this one word for love, when there are so many different types of love. You know, I can be in love with someone and then I can have love for someone else, and they can be incredibly different feelings. And so I think that's where sometimes we get tripped up as well. It's like, well, maybe I'm not in love with this person anymore, but I still have love for them. It's you can't just turn it off. You know, suddenly, you know, unless it's like some big traumatic heartbreak. But even so, I don't think love just turns off.
No, you get, and even with that big traumatic thing, it might take longer to come around to the idea that you can still love someone from afar and be okay with that. Because it's funny you say that. Like, I had an ex-girlfriend that we broke up, it was funny as well. She got quite jealous because I normally stay friends with my exes, just because we're not together doesn't mean I don't still have love for you.
Yeah.
She didn't like that fact. She got a bit jealous about it, insecure, whatever. It was always an issue in our relationship. We broke up, and then we've stayed friends. And she was cutting my hair the other day, and halfway through cutting it, she just goes to me, "It's like, you actually just do like being friends with your exes, don't you?" I'm like, "Yep." And I was just like, I'm glad it took us breaking up and becoming friends to like for you to see that.
Figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like it kind of shows you that it's like sometimes people need to live it to realize it. It's like I could tell you as much as every day I could tell you, no, we're just friends. No, I just like being friends with my exes. Blah blah blah. You never believe me. It wasn't until we actually got put in the situation where you are now an ex and a friend that you go, oh, you were telling the truth, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And it's like that realization. But it's kind of like, it's not like, I feel like if you've felt really strong love towards someone, even if it's not in a romantic sense, like if you think they're a good enough person to be in a relationship with, I feel like you can still be a friend with them.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that makes so much sense. And then there's, that defense mechanism as well that comes into play that stops people from even accepting I could be friends with this person because I'm hurt that this person isn't in love with me anymore. So I'll just push them away completely.
Because there's so many, I guess, younger me and a lot of younger guys, I would go into just say you ask a girl out on a date. And in your head, I guess the ultimate goal would be like to marry or relationship or hook up or like whatever it is. It's like that's like if you're attracted to someone, you're going to see them, that's a kind of like goal. And if you don't reach that goal, you could look at it as a failure. But it's like you could be a friend with them. They could help you maybe with like your business or something like business. Like it's so many different elements to that relationship that could stem from just hanging out with them. Yeah. So I think when I was younger, it was like, oh, you go on a date with someone, oh, it doesn't work out, oh, it's a failure. Where it's like there's so many different elements, like just having a friend, they could help you with something else, they could like show you something else, they could teach you something else, and then you come away from those experiences and go, oh, that was actually a massive win because I learned this or that, or have a friend now that then introduced me to like, there's so many more positives that can come out of dating that aren't just romantic.
I really love that perspective, and I think more people should have that perspective because it can feel like it's the be all and end all. It's either we go on some dates and it's successful because we had sex, it's successful because we ended up in a relationship, or it's successful because we like got married and had babies. But anything else is seen as a failure. But I think that's a really, really nice perspective to have when it comes to asking people out, going on dates, and like just transitioning and going, okay, well, we're not a match for lifelong partners, but we could just be buddies, or you can introduce me to someone else that might be the love of my life, or we go into business together, or something else happens. I really like that that perspective.
Have you ever been like, has that happened to you though, when you've gone on a date or something with someone and again, you're like, this person's cool, this person's absolute legend, but I don't feel that pull or sexual connection with them, but you're like, we can still be buddies, we can still be friends?
Definitely. I've definitely had that. I've also ended up in relationships, even though I was like, not that into them, but I'm also into them. Like I like this person, but not romantically. So I've made a mistake. Just like really interesting, just like such an interesting person.
True.
And I was just like, I just want to be around you.
Yeah. True.
But I was like romantically not feeling it. And so that was on me.
But so you kind of like pursued it for a little bit, but but not feeling fully into it. But did you feel like you became more attached as it went on, or was it still like the chemistry wasn't quite there?
There wasn't much chemistry, but there was a lot of like care and affection. I felt a lot of affection for them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you feel safe?
Yeah.
I think that's a big key that people don't do, is they don't make people feel safe. Yeah. I think that's like, I was talking to, do you know Charlie Owens? He's like a relationship coach on the Gold Coast, English guy. We were talking about like the safety element of a relationship or just friend in general. And it's like, if you can make someone feel safe, that's like the bedrock of pretty much any good relationship, good sex, good connection. It's like, oh, it can be me. I can relax and like let go.
1,000%. It is so, so powerful to feel safe with someone and feel seen as well by them, and just like you can fully be yourself and you don't have to pretend that you're anyone else or kind of hide away any parts of your personality. That's so special.
How do you help let people unlock that, I guess, tool to make people feel safe? Because I'd say that's obviously within sex. It's like that would be such a big element that you'd have to teach people to feel confident and safe and relaxed.
I mean, the first thing that I always recommend is clear communication. I think people don't talk to each other enough about sex. It's this assumption that we should just automatically understand each other's bodies, and it should just be like we come together and it's amazing and it's all just very intuitive. But really, the best sex comes from conversations about sex. The more that you talk about sex, the more satisfaction you're going to have when you actually have sex with your partner. And so to create this sense of safety, you need to understand what your partner needs to be able to drop their guard, to be able to soften. And you can only understand this by having a conversation about it.
Just ask them, yeah.
Just ask them. And, you know, sometimes people will never have been asked that in their life and they won't know how to answer it. And so just sort of being really, being a safe person to say yes to and to say no to as well, and asking more questions about what they might desire and how do you like this? Does this feel okay? Do you like it when I do this? I tend to say open-ended questions, the questions that are a bit more leading are really helpful rather than just a yes, no. Because if you're like, oh, do you like this? And they're like, well, no, I don't, but I don't want to say no because I don't want to hurt your feelings. That can be a bit hard. So instead you can be like, do you like this pressure, or that pressure? They go, ooh, I choose option C, you know? And so you can start to really share when it comes to what feels good in your body. But the more that you talk about sex, the better it's going to be.
This comes back to the whole, like, what is it, a nice lie or harsh truth? It's like when you're having sex and it's like, do you like this? You're like, oh, yeah, but you don't. No. And then it's like, well, I'm just going to keep doing that. Yeah. Again and again. It's like not listening to the person.
Definitely. But we need to kind of create this shared language so that we can understand what it is that we do like and don't like. Because if it is always just yes or no and we don't want to say no because we're afraid of saying no and we don't want to hurt people's feelings and we're people pleasers, then you're going to kind of cause yourself to have subpar sex because you said you like something that you don't like. Yeah. So it's on you as well.
But it's even like listening to like moans and like subconscious sounds that you're making. Yeah. It's like if you're doing something and the guy is making a certain sound, you're like, that's probably a sign I should probably like follow that and see where that goes, instead of just going, maybe I'll do something else. It's not like, it's like you're telling the person, even subconsciously telling them from just how stuff feels. So it's like listening to that. Yeah. I think is so important. I think there's listening all together.
Definitely. Just paying attention, being attuned to your partner.
Yeah. What are tools you do with individuals or couples to help them see and hear their partner better?
So there's a really, really wonderful somatic practice called pleasure mapping. And so this is where you'll have your partner just laying down, and you might have feathers and you might have whips, or you might have candles and like wax, body safe ones only. You might have body oil, things like that, right? You've got a whole bunch of different tools. And the idea is that you're going to map their body and map the pleasure that they feel and where and how. And the goal is not orgasm and penetrative sex and like, let's get it on, but more, let's understand your body and see where feels good. And it inevitably ends up being like a really erotic experience. But you can, massage your partner and try different types of touch. I talk through with my clients, elemental touch. So there's the 4 elements. So we've got like an airy touch, which is that like barely there kind of just the tip of the fingernails sort of touch. For me, I'm like, oh, it kind of, it annoys me. So I'm like, it's not enough, and it bugs me, but other people just find it so soothing. And so you can try that. And then you might try like a watery touch, which is a little bit more like fluid, and it's more like the pads of the fingers. And then you've got fiery, which is the fingernails, and it's a bit more scratchy. And then earthy is more of a massagey, kind of firm, present, grounded sort of touch. And so I get my clients to explore with different types of touch on the body and different parts of the body. I have this guide, actually, it's called the Gourmet Sex Guide, and it has like a map of the body and a map of like the genitals. And it's like, these are the different parts and these are the different types of touch. So whether it's like stroking or if it's tapping, different things in different places are going to feel amazing. And so you explore with pace and pressure and all of these different things so you can figure out, this is where I like to be touched and this is how I like to be touched. And then you got that on lock. And so next time you're having sex, you're like, ooh, elbow pit, lick, let's do it. And suddenly, you're in a world of pleasure that you didn't know you like was available to you before.
It's like Twister when you spin the wheel. It's like
totally. It's like Twister. It's great.
Because I think the big thing as well is like you might not know what you like until you get exposed to it.
Absolutely.
So it's like, try it.
Like the lick of the elbow is one that like I had no idea. And then one day it was this like long sex session. And then at one point my partner licked my elbow pit, which is the weirdest place ever. And I was like, well, that sent me over the edge. Who knew? But it's only in that context, right? If someone comes up and licks my elbow pit right now, it's probably not going to work.
Yeah.
But at the time, the pleasure is so built up that it's like, that is what's going to tip me over the edge. Your entire body is capable of being orgasmic. You can like have these incredible experiences from any part of your body. We always just focus on the erogenous zones, the typical erogenous zones, but the whole body can be if you've built that pleasure up enough.
Yeah, it's like the light touch here, like neck, earlobes, like side, like everything. Yeah, if you use it. Because I thought this, and this blew my mind, that it's funny, if I meet someone and obviously there's a connection, there's chemistry and all that, I'd always be like, can I give you a massage? Because it's like, I think obviously I would want to touch their body if it's gotten to that point. They would enjoy it. That you like physically feel them soften and relax.
Yeah.
And the amount of times when a girl would be like, you actually want to do that? Yeah. And it's just like, what do you mean? Like, what? What do you mean? That's what I mean. But like, that's like, oh no, people don't normally do that, or haven't had someone offer that. And you're like, and like, they're like shocked that you wanted. I'm like, and I think this is the thing. It's like a lot of people look at sex as being like, we have sex between these times in bed in these positions and that's it. And I was talking to a friend the other day that she was in a relationship where that would kind of be the thing. It's like, we'd go to bed, we'd have sex, done. Yeah. And it's like sex and foreplay, or foreplay for sex, start from the moment you wake up and you see them or you message them or you like, it's like this build up over a day or a week or however long it is from when you see them. And it's like that, all those little interactions, all those little connections and touches and feels and smells and everything like builds into something, someone feeling safe enough to then obviously like give themselves to. So it's like all those little bits lead into that. So it's like, if you're just thinking, okay, it's time to have sex, and you have sex like it's go to work, come home, it's never going to be that good because the person feels anxious and uptight and not relaxed. But it's like little things like giving them a kiss now and again, touching their hair, like letting them know like, I'm here, I like you outside of just the fact that it's like, we're going to have sex now. Otherwise it feels very like robotic and just like, okay.
Kind of transactional in a way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And
a switch on and off.
Yeah. And I feel like it's just, you're never going to be that relaxed, comfortable person if it's like, okay, now's the time. Okay, done. Go to bed.
Yeah. I think a lot of women will be stoked to hear someone describe it like that, because it's such a beautiful way to illustrate the way that we experience desire and arousal. And so to the men listening, like, take note, because a lot of us have had experiences where, it feels kind of transactional, or like you're expecting us to just be a switch that turns on when you're ready. And this isn't always gendered at all, but what you're describing is the idea of like a responsive desire type. It's that build up, that long, slow, like compounding effect. Yeah. And I think that's so beautiful, because that allows someone to soften and to open up and be receptive to sex. And the other style of desire that most commonly people assume is the way that you're meant to be is spontaneous. And that's where it's like, at the drop of a hat, I'm ready, let's go. There's been no build up whatsoever. And that's not wrong, because a lot of people experience that type of desire. But when you're in a relationship and one has one type and the other has the opposite, that's where things can really get tripped up, because this one person is like, well, I'm ready all the time. And if they are approaching their partner who needs a build-up and they're saying, let's get it on, and they're saying, well, no, because you haven't done any build-up, this person feels rejected.
Yeah.
Right? And we don't want them to feel rejected. That's not fair either. But we just need to understand each other's language and the way that we need to be warmed up for sex. And so I always recommend to my clients, to my students, to understand what your desire type is. Is it responsive or is it spontaneous? Can you like be ready and aroused and like good to go at the drop of a hat? Or do you require a little bit more build up? Do you require something kind of sexually relevant to already be happening? Like maybe you don't feel horny, you're not feeling a desire for sex, and then you start sort of cuddling and kissing and you haven't thought about sex, and there's no pressure. That's a huge thing. But then your body starts to respond, and then you go, oh, actually, my body's responding. And now I do feel a desire for sex. It wasn't there before, but now it is. Yeah. We need that build up.
Yeah, and I think that goes both ways. Like I know I've been on the receiving end of that, where someone will come up and like just like grab your hand or like just touch you or just brush past you, and like just little things like that. You kind of like, oh, and it just gives you that little butterfly, a little spark. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And then that builds into something where if it's just cold and then you're like into it. And also I think what I've learned is obviously people are aroused at different times. Like I know some people are like morning sex is like their big thing, where other people aren't, and it's just like finding out like what either your partner or someone you're seeing like when they are more aroused, and then maybe like either playing on that or discussing what's better for who, and like working with each other more or less than just being like, why don't you ever want to sleep with me in the morning? It's like, I'm tired.
Leave me
leave me alone. It's not anything to do with you. I just want to sleep in. And it's like, that's not a problem. That's just like something you need to kind of talk through and understand.
Totally. I always use this example of like, if I am speaking German to you right now and you don't understand German, and I keep like demanding something. Nine. And you're just like, I don't know. Yeah. And then I'm getting angry with you for not understanding what I'm saying. Like, that's just unfair. And if you're speaking French and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck you're saying, it's not fair for us to be pissed off with one another because you don't understand my language. But what we can do is we can start to learn some phrases in each other's language, and then maybe we even create like our own mutual language of English or whatever it is, and that's the language that we can speak together. But we need to know how the other person responds to desire, what types of touch that they like, what times of day they prefer, what context kind of puts them out of it. I always talk about these, the idea of the brakes and the accelerators. You know, we have these two systems going on in our brains and our bodies at all times, and those are the sexual excitation system and the sexual inhibition system. Basically, they're constantly scanning your environment, internal and outside, and they're looking for reasons to either be turned on or to be turned off. And so we need to turn on the turn-ons and we need to turn off the turn-offs. And so we want to feel like I'm not having all of these brakes kind of pushed down, like I have to get out of the door in 5 minutes. There's halogen lights on. The kids are going to come into the room at any second. Like, there's all these things. Those are brakes, right? I need to make sure that those aren't there so that I can then allow myself to press the accelerator. No matter how much I'm pressing the accelerator, if you're like doing a sexy dance and you've got like some sexy music playing and you've got like all these vibes and whips and toys and all these things out, it's still not going to be enough of an accelerator to like make the brake kind of come off.
Go away, yeah.
So we need to kind of balance that out and figure out, okay, what things turn me on and what things turn me off, and how can we balance them?
Because I guess a lot of people wouldn't even know that, hey? Like subconsciously they would know that because obviously what does and doesn't, but they probably wouldn't even like write it down.
Yes.
Like what am I looking for in a person, or what is my like kind of kinks and stuff.
Yeah.
And I guess being okay with that.
Yeah, definitely. And understanding, okay, these are the things that I've noticed. When I say no to sex, it's because of X, Y, Z. And it might be obvious to me, you know. I might be like, well, I have a meeting in 5 minutes. And so my answer is no. And my partner's like, what do you mean? I can sort that out. Like, no big deal for me. But for me, I'm like, well, I know I need to like get scented and I need to like check my makeup, like set up Zoom, whatever.
Yeah.
and we assume that the other person knows. You know, I might be like, oh my God, that window is open and I can hear the neighbor next door like yelling, and that's just putting me out of my head. And for me, it's like glaringly obvious. But for my partner, tuned out completely, you know? I often say with me, one that I always tell my partners is, if we have a playlist on and the songs, I know the lyrics to every single song, I'm singing it in my head. It doesn't matter what you're doing.
Ooh, let the dogs out. Ooh, oh.
Precisely.
Your partner's just there. It's like,
famously, that's the go-to sex playlist. So let the dogs out. That makes sense. But you know, like some people can tune that shit out. For me, no. Doesn't matter what you're doing. Doesn't matter how skilled you are. I'm singing in my head.
Yeah.
Who let the dogs out specifically?
Top 3 songs that
Why that song?
I just came to me.
Great.
I've never listened to that while having sex, but I feel like
I really hope not. I'd be mortified if someone put that song on.
You bring a girl home. It's like the date's gone great. You're in the mood. You're like, hold on one second. I just got a song to put on.
I gotta cue this up.
Hello, Scruffy.
You know what I had when I was like in my pole dancing prime? I had this guy take me home, and he literally queued up a song when we were fucking, and it was "I'm in love with a stripper." And I was like, I'm actually not even a stripper. I'm just a pole dancer. But I was like, no, we're not doing that. Turn it off. I was like, are you fucking with me right now?
Did he think that was like the move?
Oh, he thought it was great. He was like, I think it was a novelty. He thought it was just like really hot that I was a pole dancer. So he was like, gotta put this track on. I know the one.
Oh, yeah. I think, would you normally listen to music? Like, or?
It depends. I do like a bit of backing track.
Yeah. As long as you don't know it.
No, I like, it can be, yeah, it just can't be songs that I know the lyrics to, and because I want to sing along in my head and I can't focus.
I feel like it can't be like a piss take, like a really like, it's like let's get it on, like, like something like that where you're like,
let's talk about sex, baby.
That's what I mean. Like, just put something maybe like instrumental or something that's like, so it's there.
There's some really nice like tantric background sex music that's quite nice, not too hectic.
And make sure you pay for the music so you don't get an ad halfway.
Oh, can you imagine? No, we don't need that.
Oh, okay, just little tips.
Yeah, just Spotify Premium.
Spotify Premium. Don't play Who Let the Dogs Out.
No,
if she's a pole dancer, don't call her a stripper.
Yeah.
This is just simple 101. Like
101. You would think.
This is the thing though. This is like how I said about the massaging thing, and the girl's like, oh.
Yeah,
no one,
mind blown.
That's what I mean. Like, that seems like a simple, like the fact that they're saying like you want to do that. Yeah. I'm like, are you kidding me? Like I'm here. I'm here. Like if I'm still in the room or the bed, I want to touch your body.
Yeah.
Like for you to feel that way and like that. Like, I don't know how guys treat girls in that setting because I'm not seeing guys, but talking to girls and realizing that a lot of shit that is very much in my head common sense is not.
Yeah, and I think that really does reflect the fact that so many women have been treated as though they're just a body and like a vessel to be used for sex, and not necessarily being really like ravished and appreciated and worshipped, you know? Like that act of massaging someone's body is really this beautiful connection piece where you can actually, you know, you're touching this beautiful body, and like women's bodies are amazing. Like they're so beautiful. You want to touch them, of course. And a lot of us just haven't had that experience. And so it makes sense to me why some people are like, wow, what do you do? You want to? Yeah. You don't feel like you have to. You actually want to, because so
that's the
many
big thing, like want and have to.
Totally, because a lot of the time women don't ask for what they desire, and they don't feel like they can, because they feel as though we've been raised to think that the goal of sex is a man's orgasm. When we're talking of like a heterosexual sort of situation. And as much as women enjoy sex and pleasure, there is this conditioning that we have really gotten ingrained in us, is that we exist for men's pleasure. And that's a really hard thing to kind of strip away and to peel back the layers from, because it gets in really deep. You know, the conditioning from media, from social media and TV and movies, we see it often sex viewed through this like male lens, the male gaze, and that the purpose is the man's ejaculation. And when he comes, that's sex over. That's the full stop. That means we're done, book closed. And so for some women to have a man actually treat them as though they are like reveling in their beautiful body and they care about their pleasure, like that can be mind blowing for women. And like that's so deeply sad that women have that experience and can go years and years and years of their sexual life and not have someone really, really care about their pleasure. It's awful, but it's super common, unfortunately. And so to people who have had that experience and are kind of listening to this and thinking, wow, I haven't prioritized my pleasure and I haven't had someone really care. This is an opportunity and an invitation for you to set your boundaries. You know, really speak up and say, actually, I'm here too.
Yeah.
This isn't all about like the end goal. And like goal-oriented sex, that's where we really, really need to shift the focus away from being goal-oriented and focused on orgasm only to pleasure. Pleasure is the purpose of sex, not orgasms. Orgasms are a very, very happy side effect.
Like a cherry.
Exactly. But it's not always about just reaching for the O.
Yeah. I even know, like, talking to some people, they even say, like, the orgasm is, like, good, but it's, like, the actual pleasure of sex is way better.
Yeah.
And they almost don't want to
Yeah.
orgasm because they're like, then it's over.
Totally.
So I want to stay in this state for longer. And this is, like, the biggest mind-blowing thing for me is, like, if you're making your partner more satisfied and feel sexier and better and seen and felt, the byproduct of that is you're going to have better sex yourself.
Yeah.
And feel better. So it's, like, I always say it's, like, being a good person in the bedroom for your partner is going to benefit you just as much as them.
Totally. It's
So
like
it's
a symbiotic relationship.
Yeah. So it's, like, you kind of... It's like not selfish, but selfish. Like I want you to feel better, so I feel better. So it's like
totally.
we both win.
It's mutually beneficial.
Yeah. So it's just
As
like,
it should be. Yeah.
Anyway, so you've got these two courses.
Yeah.
That we Pussy Pro.
Yeah.
And Tongue Tactics.
BJ Queen. So they're both under the banner of Tongue Tactics. And I have BJ Queen or Pussy Pro edition.
Yeah. and what is the basis of these two programs?
So Tongue Tactics is all about learning how to give the best head ever. So going down like a pro, and basically in each course, each version, I teach you everything that you need to know to make your lover melt in your mouth. So with Pussy Pro, that's for people who like to lick pussies. It's all for all genders because I'm bi as well. So I kind of created these courses with myself in mind, but also for any gender, and to kind of, you know, do women a solid who want to receive really good head by getting their boyfriends or partners to experience it. And so I've got that Pussy Pro version that teaches you everything that you need to know about like energetics, anatomy, language, and actual tips and tricks as well. And then BJ Queen is similar, but for cocks and like how to give the best blowjob. And I've had the best feedback in the world. Like I've got hundreds of reviews. I've currently got, I think, like 815 students, and it's just amazing hearing the stories.
You mean students as in people you've taught, sorry.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. I was thinking they had 800 like reviews on you doing it.
On me doing
No,
it.
that's, yeah, sorry. Do you get what I mean? You just like, you're like, I have good reviews. About
my course.
I bet, yeah.
I also have great reviews from like my
From that
lovers,
as well.
I'm gonna say.
Just when you said 800, I was like, okay.
Great.
Yeah, from students.
Get it. No, so I currently have 800
Just to clarify.
Tongue Tactics students
Yeah.
who have taken the course, either BJ Queen or Pussy Pro.
Yeah.
Yeah. And hundreds of reviews as a result.
From the students.
And several reviews of my own. That's another thing.
Well, I was going to say, can you give us some tips? Obviously, we won't give away the whole course, but just like simple things that people can do to make that better for them.
Yeah. So we've already spoken about like the importance of communication. And so that's always going to be number one, is communication, making your partner feel safe, especially for people with pussies. We need to feel really, really safe to surrender and to open and to be receptive to sex. If we don't feel like we're safe with our partner, like we can trust them, like they care about our pleasure, then we're actually going to kind of cock block ourselves and we like won't let the orgasm happen. Men are a little bit different, but still need to feel safe and to feel seen and to feel like worshipped. I think when you're going down on someone, the more vocal you can be about like how excited you are to be there, the better, because no one wants to feel like someone's going down on them out of obligation.
It's a chore.
Yeah, we don't want to feel that. And it's so great. I've had a lot of people say that after taking tongue tactics, they've felt more excited, especially women, to give blowjobs. They're like, oh yeah, I used to kind of do it. Like I know that they like it, but they weren't enjoying it. And now they're like, I can't get enough. I really want to do this. It's so fun for me. And so make your partner feel like you are stoked to be down there and it's like your favorite thing ever and that you want to be there for as long as possible, rather than like, let's get this over with.
Yeah.
That's a really, really important thing. For vulvas, for pussies, I always say start from the outside in. So we tend to feel our arousal from the outside in. It's not good enough to just be like, cool, I'm making out and now I'm going to suddenly go and like lick your clit aggressively. It's not enough. We've got to take our time and sort of seduce this person from the outside in, start out outer edges first and then slowly work towards the center. We need roughly 20 to 40 minutes of build up before any type of penetration. So penetration is fingers, dildos, penises. It's anything. And so often we're rushing that in and we're going, okay, cool, I'm just going to like quickly get in there. And while I'm on that topic, I'll say, don't use your fingers as like a faux dick. You don't need to.
What do you mean? Like
as in place of a dick, you're trying to do the same movements. And this is like the in and out.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't need that movement. We've got so much more that can be on offer. And so the little come hither kind of movement is going to be the absolute best you can do, because it's going to feel so much more pleasurable for like your G-spot.
Yeah.
If you're actually kind of doing a little bit of a curve, play around with that, but just the straight up in and out and like a finger bang.
Ain't it? It's like softer, slower is better.
Tends to be.
To start.
Yeah, exactly. To start. But everyone, like each to their own. Some people love a finger bang, but there's a time and a place for it.
But it's like build into it, like read the room. Like it's
You've
not
gotta
just
read the
like
room.
you don't want to just jump into something for like, and maybe you do sometimes. If you know the person, if you two are like, sometimes.
If you have like an agreement for like this is a quickie and we're like gonna sort it out.
Yeah.
But yeah, often if you want to have a really great experience and you want to take your partner to their pleasure potential as well, you've got to build up slowly. And then, maybe you get to a point where it's like fast and furious and it's amazing, but you can't start off there. And that's also like, I'm just going to go a little bit of like physiology because anatomy, because we wouldn't want to have penetrative sex with a soft cock, right? It's not going to work as well. It's not going to feel as pleasurable as it could be if it's hard. And so the way that cocks get hard is because we have this arousal, the blood vessels open and cock fills with blood and it's like, boom, erect, let's go. That tends to happen within seconds or minutes, right? For us, we also have erectile tissue. It's the clitoris, but it's like underneath. And so you can't see it as much, but you can, when someone with a pussy is really highly aroused, they kind of tend to like puff up a little bit. And that's because we've had the blood flow go to the bulbs of the clitoris, which is kind of like similar sort of erectile tissue as a cock. And that is what's going to make penetration way more pleasurable. If we don't have that and we haven't built that pleasure up, then it's not going to feel as good. And so I always sort of invite you to think, okay, would I want to be having sex with a soft cock? Probably not. Therefore, I'm going to warm my partner up a lot more because it takes longer, 20 to 40 minutes.
Yeah. But like we said, that can be, I think as well, like the 20 to 40 minutes thing, that could be like, you're driving in the car, you've got your hand on their leg, you're touching their hand, like that is part of that time.
Exactly.
So
it's the build up. It's not 20 to 40 minutes of licking a clit.
Exactly. Yeah.
Necessarily. It can be.
Yeah. Yeah. But I'm saying it's like if you want to have, maybe you're in the car and you're touching each other's legs and you get home and it's like bang, straight into it. It's like that wasn't like we got home and that's when the clock starts.
Totally.
It's like this built up thing of just like tension and you're like, oh, what's going to happen? And then it goes into something.
Yeah.
So it's like, don't just think, oh, when we get home, we're going to have sex. It's like build into that from when you're wherever you started, or like if you're out during the day, like it comes back to all those little interactions that help.
Yeah, like little moments of seduction, I think.
Yeah. Yeah. Be like flirty, be a bit of a tease, do things, say things, just like have fun. Like it goes both ways and it's really fun.
Totally.
I was going to ask you, what do you think the biggest damaging thing about porn is, good and bad? and OnlyFans and all of this. Probably porn. I feel like porn and OnlyFans are almost two separate things, because
I'd say
porn's almost like seems like kind of distant in a way. Like it seems, I don't know, it seems different, and then OnlyFans seems very connected. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? It's like
definitely, and it's the difference between the sovereignty of the performers. And so, if you're watching porn that is coming from websites like RedTube or Pornhub, most often people aren't being paid properly. People don't have much sovereignty over what they do, what they don't do, and there's a lot of dodgy stuff that goes on. And so there's a real difference between mainstream porn and then ethical porn. And OnlyFans would probably, I would say, fit under ethical porn, because the performers are choosing what they do themselves. They're setting their own rates, and it's very much a decision on their part to take part in this. And so it's a really different energy. And with mainstream porn, I think that there is a huge issue with the disconnection. So a lot of the time it is performative, and my whole thing in my work is about not being performative and instead being embodied in your pleasure, in your expression of your sexuality, and in the actual sex that you're having. So mainstream porn and some OnlyFans sort of other porn can be very performative, and it is generally catering to the male gaze. And so a lot of the time it's looking through this lens of what men tend to like, and it's very visual, and it's not often taking into account like the woman's pleasure. A lot of it can be really, really degrading and things like this. Not all the time, of course. There's such a wide spectrum when it comes to porn, but ethical porn tends to be more centered around female pleasure as well, mutual pleasure, consent, boundaries, like there's actual discussion happening, rather than just this performative scene. Because if people are only watching these performative scenes, I've heard someone use the analogy of like learning about sex from porn is like learning how to drive a car by watching the Fast and the Furious. You know?
Yeah.
Like it's not great.
It's not reality, is it?
Yeah, and it's a bit dangerous as well. Like, I would be shocked if a man had never had sex with a human and had only been watching really, really intense mainstream performative porn and then tried to have sex with me. I'd be mortified, because I'd be like, oh wow,
slow down.
You don't see me as a person at all. Yeah. And I think that's a lot of the time is what is happening when people are focusing so much on mainstream porn. I don't think there's anything wrong with porn. You know, I think it's a healthy thing to engage in if you're doing it in the right ways and consuming ethical porn as well.
Because the thing is, again, it comes back, we said before about like giving yourself pleasure, but it's like, do you find it damaging though if you're in a relationship and your partner was watching porn?
No, I don't think there's any issue with someone engaging in porn. I think it's more about the way that you're approaching it. If you're like, I'm addicted to this and I need to watch certain type of porn to get off, we have created certain neural pathways that are like, that's the only way that I can have an orgasm is by watching X thing. And if you feel like you have a problem and you can't not engage in it, then that's an issue. But watching porn, engaging in that sort of activity, I don't think is inherently bad. I think that the problem often is that people have this expectation that I'm in a relationship with you, therefore I own your pleasure. And if you're ever self-pleasuring or masturbating without me, that must be a reflection on the fact that you don't want to have sex with me. Why on earth would you masturbate if you could have sex with me? I'm right here. And that is saying your pleasure isn't yours, it belongs to me only. And I think that that is incredibly problematic because, yes, you could have sex with that person, but sometimes you just want to explore your own body, and that's totally fine. It can be problematic if you are like sitting next to your partner and they want to have sex with you, but you're like, nah, sorry.
I just had a wank, yeah. What about, okay, let's switch this up. What about, okay, you've got you're in a relationship. He's following an OnlyFans girl that lives in your town and he's watching their porn. And this is like someone you could bump into down the street.
I would definitely question their motivations.
Why they're doing it, yeah.
Yeah.
Because like on the Gold Coast, that's a very real thing. Like I know plenty of OnlyFans girls that have like, it's actually, I'm more shocked when I see a girl with a lot of followers and she doesn't have an OF.
Interesting. Really?
100%. There's so, it just, you always see like, oops, spicy link here. Link here. It's like, it's, and I wonder that, because I always say to people, do what the fuck you want. It's your life. Get your money, shake your ass, do you. No care in the world for what you do. It's your world, it's your life. But what is the repercussions of doing this in the future for you, family, connection, all these other things, values, all that? And is it going to become normalized to the point where everyone's doing it, that it's like, just for example, tattoos used to mean like you're tough. Bikies had tattoos. Everyone has tattoos now. They're not really, people just have tattoos. Yeah. Is that going to be OnlyFans? Is it going to be that mainstream that people don't really care as much? Because you always hear about stories about kids getting bullied and like, you imagine in 15 years or whatever when people that have OnlyFans, obviously people have kids that have OnlyFans now, but like the surge is probably going to go through the roof when all these kids that are going to school now, their parents are OnlyFans influencers and porn stars, whatever it is. Are they just going to be like a group of kids that hang out, like goth kids and nerdy kids and then OnlyFans kids? Because like, I don't know how it's like, you're not going to know until that plays out how it's going to actually go, but is it going to get better or worse?
I don't know. I mean, I think that the thing to really question here is why it could be seen as a bad thing. You know, I understand that people have certain views on sexuality, but at the end of the day, like sex isn't a bad thing. And when we make it out to be this like really bad taboo thing that is dirty, we're just sort of telling each other and ourselves that we're wrong for even desiring sex. But the thing is, OnlyFans and porn, all of these things exist because there is a market for it, because we're all horny and we all like enjoy watching sex, hearing about sex, having sex. And so I think that it can be really, really unfair when we're like, oh, I'm going to judge the person who is providing the thing that I consume. You know, so, and often the people who are the most vocal about like putting down performers and sex workers are the people that consume it the most. And you're like, okay, well, would you prefer that this isn't an option to be consumed at all? No, you probably wouldn't. You'd be like, oh man, like I miss having access to porn or to being able to explore this. And so I think that there's a lot of nuance here. When it comes to the idea of like kids and stuff like that, I have no idea how that's going to come to light, and if it's going to affect children, and if it's going to come out that like, oh there's these photos of my mom or something. I don't know. I'm not sure how that will play out, but I don't know if that's a good enough reason not to do it if it's something that you enjoy. Yeah. The decision to engage in sex work is a purely personal one, and some people really, really enjoy it and others feel a necessity, and sometimes there's like economic things that come up that, you know, mean like that is actually a really viable option, and others are just like, fuck yeah, I love this and it's fun. I
do it anyway. Yeah,
exactly. So I think that it can be difficult to really judge people's motivations, especially when it's something that we personally don't have an interest in, you know, because it's like, I can say, well, I don't particularly have a desire to do that, but I also don't have a desire to scuba dive.
Yeah.
So whatever, you know, I can't say too much about the scuba community either. You know?
I get what you're saying. I just that whole thing. Will it become more normalized then? To it, because
Yeah.
you think about like how we used to dress, how we used to
Yeah.
hide our bodies, and now everything's become more like open, free flowing, more
I think so.
explicit. It's like, is that just gonna be like sweet your parents do OnlyFans, sweet my parents do OnlyFans? Who cares?
Yeah.
Like, it's like, is that a normal thing?
I think it could be. I mean, what's normal?
Yeah.
You know,
and what's
like-
wrong? What's right? What's
Yeah. And what's normalized, you know, like the only reason that sex has been considered taboo is because of, you know, old, outdated influences by like the church. Prior to that influence in society, it really wasn't a taboo thing. It was actually seen as quite sacred and like this whole revelry around sexuality and the connection to spirituality. And so I think that sometimes we can kind of go, oh no, is something bad happening with society that like sex is being spoken about more often and people are enjoying sex and wanting to consume, you know, sex on OnlyFans or something like that. It's more about, okay, well, why was it ever considered a taboo thing? Like, well, the society that we're in has created that as a taboo, and now it can also create it as not being taboo. So we kind of get to choose how we navigate this.
through it. Yeah. Do you find though that there can be a negative within the idea of you are so like you're not trying to find a real connection with a real person because you can get that dopamine hit out of talking to a person on the internet that gives you what you want?
Definitely.
And that, I feel like that's almost the scary part, is like you're not trying to build relationships, build connections, because you can just go get that online for $10 a month.
Yeah, definitely. If it's becoming a replacement for human interaction and connection, I think that's where a lot of reflection has to come in. And so same in relationships, if you're like, oh, I'm choosing to engage with a performer instead of my partner, that's a problem. And it's not because of the porn, it's because of the relationship.
Yeah.
You know, like you need to be able to connect with a human. You need to be able to really, really have these nourishing relationships and connections. And there's a lot of nuance there as well. But if you find it getting in the way of your regular life, that's when it's a problem. Same with any kind of substance abuse. You know, if it's getting in the way of your life, if it's consuming your thoughts, okay, some reflection is needed.
Yeah, it's like, what's the itch that you're trying to scratch?
Yeah.
And if you keep trying to scratch it, it's like, I should deal with this.
Yeah.
I was going to say, going off connection, because you run, I'm pretty sure I've heard, right? You run like sex parties or like sex positive parties where people...
I don't run them. I have attended some.
You've attended some?
Yeah.
Okay, so I saw a snippet of you going to one.
Yeah, I've performed at a couple.
Okay.
Yeah.
How does that work?
The performance or the sex party?
All of it. I don't know. I'm new to this. But
Yeah, I was actually brand new to it as well, so I'd never attended. I'd always been curious. Actually, no, that's a lie. I did attend one last year. It was very subpar, but it was okay. And I was lucky enough to be invited to perform. I teach what I call the art of seduction, which is like embodied lap dance. It's a really different style. It's less performative, more embodied, of course, my whole thing. So I've performed at a few this year, and one of them was for bi-curious women only, and the other was all genders. And the way that they work, the good ones, I think, they sort of start off, one of the ones that I went to that was amazing, started off with like a masquerade kind of ball vibe. Everyone's in these beautiful gowns and tuxes and masks, and you've got a whole cocktail party going on. It's this beautiful like mansion of a location out in the middle of nowhere, and really sort of secluded but private, and you just sort of mingle with people. And then there was a shibari performance, which is really beautiful to watch. Everyone kind of gathered to watch that. More mingling, and then I did my performance, which was just like an embodied lap dance where I just had a volunteer and I shared this experience. And then there was the invitation for people to dress down, and so each of the members was kind of taken off into a room, and they could kind of get undressed or like into lingerie or something. Masks came off, and then, you know, people were just chatting. There was another performance that was a little bit spicier, and that was more like she kind of got fully nude, and it was like wax and fire and stuff. And so by then everyone's like a little bit worked up, and there's several bedrooms, and they all have like a splash blanket down and like condoms and lube in the corner and towels and everything. And yeah, it's just like, okay, connect with whoever you want to connect with, and let's wrap this by 2 a.m.
Are people mostly single, or is it couples, or like how does it just kind of bit everything?
At this one, so the all genders one, that was mainly couples, and then a few singles were there. I was there as a single because I was just performing, and then I was just, you know, hanging out. And then at the queer one, that was all just women.
Yeah.
Some of them had husbands and stuff like that, but it was very much like.
How do you find that? Because you're seeing someone now.
Yes.
You started seeing because it's always this tricky thing. Just say for couples, if they want to bring someone in, I feel like if you're going to bring someone into a relationship, the girl obviously has to be as attracted to the girl as you are to the girl, and like everyone needs to be on board. But
yes.
if it's not like that, I feel like it's doesn't feel right.
Yeah.
How does that go with, obviously you said you're bi, and would you if he brought someone in or you brought someone in, how would you go about that?
So I've been a unicorn several times, which is when you are the third entering a couple. And in this situation, I would always say to couples, you need to be so solid in your relationship first. Like, there's no way that you're doing this to fix what you think is a broken relationship. It's not going to work. Ever.
Unicorn's going to stab you in the neck.
Totally. That is dangerous. So you've got to be so solid and secure in your relationship first. And then you have to have really, really open, honest conversations about what it is that both of you are desiring and your boundaries. You have to be rock solid in your boundaries before you even think of inviting someone else into the relationship, sexually or, like, you know, emotionally, depending what you're hoping for. And so you have to have that solid beginning. And then when you sort of reach out to someone, whether it's on an app or in person, on an app tends to be the easier way, or even at like a party or something, it's much more conducive. Then have that conversation with them as well. So when I've been a unicorn, I've been really clear with this couple, because I don't want to fuck up a relationship. Like, I'm not trying to steal no man or steal no woman. Like, I'm not there to mess things up, and I don't want them to break up. Like, I want everyone to have a good time.
Do you not show all your tricks then? Like, I'm just gonna give you the 50% treatment. I don't want this guy to be thinking there's more out there.
Oh my gosh, that would be awful. I'd be mortified.
You know what I mean? Just like, you change this man's life. You're like, what have I been doing?
No. We all go into it feeling really secure. Yeah. And so I ask them, I'm like, what is and isn't okay for you guys? How do you feel? And I always make sure, as the unicorn as well, that I'm only...
Sorry, you're just the unicorn phrase.
As the unicorn. As the third.
Sorry, it just makes me think, have you seen like Charlie the unicorn? It's like,
yeah.
Charlie, come to the bedroom, Charlie.
Sexy unicorn.
Just clip cloppy.
I'm just clip clopping in there, doing my thing, and then neighing away. But with style.
With style.
Yeah. So I'll make sure that I'm always in like a group chat with them as well. I don't like to text like individually typically.
Yeah, same page, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think as well a big thing for threesomes in general is and especially if it's like a female male threesome where there's two women and a man, I really, really recommend that both women are actually bi, because a lot of the time straight women will be like, oh yeah, cool, like I know my partner fantasizes about having another woman in the room, and they kind of go along with it, and like they might not like it, and they might get jealous because they're not into it, and they're like, oh, my partner's just like focusing on her, and they don't really enjoy making out with another woman or like touching a pussy or something. So I really do think like you've probably got to have
you felt that in when you've done it?
Like
this is one-sided.
I don't think I have, thankfully. I think most of the time, it's the woman who is like the one that is putting it all together. Most often,
I feel like that's what you need.
Yeah.
Like I would,
Yeah.
if I was in a relationship and I wouldn't want to be the one to be like, hey, I'm into this girl. What do you think? It's like, no, that's, if you're into it,
Yeah.
maybe let's talk about it. But
Yeah.
you need to be the one pushing this, not the guy. I feel like the guy's like, it seems like somewhat forceful.
Totally.
Even if it's,
Yeah, absolutely. It can definitely feel a little bit uncomfortable. And especially if there's any, like, even just like lingering insecurities, it's nice for it to come from the woman rather than the man being like, I want to do this and I'm going to get another woman to come in. And, it could breed some insecurity from that partner. But again, that can all be kind of just put to the side if you have clear communication.
Well, look at it vice versa. Imagine if the girl was like, hey, I've got Bob over here, this massive dude that's like, he's keen. Are you? And you're just like, I don't want to kiss this dude. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's just like, it's the same thing. It's
exactly the same thing. And like, not enough men are open to the idea of having another man in the bedroom. And so I think that's actually a really good like test to say, okay, well, if you have this expectation and you don't think that I should have any issue with you inviting another woman in, how would you feel if I invited another man? And if they bristle at that, it's like, okay, cool. Well, maybe let's like think about this.
Yeah.
But yeah, some people are like down for it, some people are not. And there's so many different like amalgamations, little like ways that you can have a threesome.
I was just thinking, imagine how easy life would be. Like instead of we had name tags, just had this little like beacon above your head that just had all your kinks and all your thing. It's just like you just knew.
Oh my gosh. And honestly, like I think this would be a saving grace for queer women because it's so difficult. You're like, I have no idea. Like, are you just being nice or are you flirting with me? I don't know.
Yeah.
I cannot tell.
Yeah, I feel like especially on the Gold Coast, the gay community here would not be.
They're not, I don't feel like we have a really big open queer community up here. There's not as many events and stuff as there are in other cities. And so often you're just like, okay, like, are you hitting on me or are you just being nice? I don't know.
I guess you just got to ask though at that point, hey?
Truly.
Sometimes the easiest thing is to ask, but then you know.
Well, because I've had friends, people who are like legitimately friends now, that when we first met, they've told me years later, they're like, yeah, I was really into you and I wanted to take you on a date, but I didn't know how to ask and I didn't know if you were into women. And I was like, oh, for fuck's sake.
ask the question.
And don't just be like, hey, do you want to hang out? Hang out. That's not a date.
Yeah.
Say, I want to take you on a date. And if I go, oh, babe, I'm straight, then you know. Yeah. But like,
it's like rejection again.
Yeah.
Scared of rejection. Because it sucks. Like it sucks to feel a want towards someone and then not to feel it back. You feel just like.
Plus the layer of like outing yourself in front of someone that you don't know if they're queer or not. That's like a whole other thing that you're like, oh, like, I don't know. Am I assuming that you're queer or are you just being really nice? Because especially like women are so flirty with each other. Yeah. Straight women flirt with each other all the fucking time.
Yeah, and kiss each other and do all these other like they do. I know friends that are straight that they'll like get a few drinks in them and go out and party and be like, I'm kissing my best friend. You know,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Are they straight?
So I get it. I always, I don't know, I don't see as much for guys because I'm like, I feel like guys are like hairy, dirty, blah, blah, blah. But like, I get when girls are into girls because I'm like,
obviously.
It's
right.
It's a little bit better.
Yeah.
A little bit better.
Yeah.
I get it.
It's a good time. I think everyone's a little bit flexible. It just depends. The right circumstances, everyone's going to be like, oh. Tell me there's not a man that you'd be like, yeah, I'd get it.
He'd get it.
You'd get it.
Yeah, I can think of a man that would get it.
Yeah.
I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The Rock.
Maybe.
I was just thinking all these people came to mind that would like just be funny to say, but also just be like, ugh.
Yeah, you're like, oh, in practice, no. Like you can like appreciate a man's.
You want to know the series of people that came to my mind then in order?
I'd love to.
Joe Biden, Kevin Rudd, The Rock.
Sorry, what? Do we have like a little political kink going on?
I don't know why that came to my head.
What do you mean?
That's like,
Joe Biden.
That's like
I'm sorry,
for
I don't.
pure
I'm
shock,
sex positive.
for
I'm
pure
not slut
no, for pure shock value and just like laughs, which I have gotten.
You've gotten,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was just I don't know why that. Yeah, that was the
Mission accomplished.
oh god. Anyway,
Goodness.
it was funny. There was one thing I said to you the other day, and it was good because I said it, and I think I heard it. I don't know if it was like on a reel or something, and I told you about it and made me look at it a different way, which I thought was really cool. But it talks about how guys and girls can want different things, and I said that girls a lot of time want experience and guys want purity. And you were saying that was like how you saw that was like a masculinity, like ideology of how to look at it. And I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about it through that view.
Oh, yeah. So the idea that that women desire men who have experience or desire like sexual experience so that they have more pleasure, right? And that often men have this idea that they want a woman who is more pure or hasn't had sex with as many people. I really struggle with this belief or this desire because it's often seeing women as not like fully human in a way, because it's like you exist only for my pleasure and I don't want you to have had any other experience with any other person, and therefore your pleasure belongs to me, right? And it's just this lack of sovereignty. It also feeds into what is called the Madonna whore complex. Have you heard of this? So the Madonna whore complex, or dichotomy, is the idea that often men will see women as one of two kind of categories. And it's either you're the Madonna, the virgin, the mother archetype, or you're the whore, the slut, the person who likes sex, you're promiscuous, and you can't possibly be both. And this is why so many people struggle with the idea that like a mother could be a sexually active person, even though you literally have to have sex to become a mother, right? Like that's the way that it happens. And so this also plays out in this idea that like, oh, a woman is either a whore, a slut, a sexually liberated woman who may have had sex with a lot of people or just a few people a lot of times and really enjoys it. Or she is virginal and pure and hasn't had sex with either anyone or very many people, and that's like this holy grail. But it's like, well, if you want the experience and the pleasure, but you don't want to accept it in this package, it's really just sort of telling us as women that like you can only be one of these two archetypes, and it's just not fair. And I don't think that this desire for a woman who hasn't had who doesn't have a high body count, which I hate that terminology, I think that is really, really showing that you aren't fully honoring or respecting women's right to pleasure as well. So I struggle with that idea.
Do you think body count matters on both sides?
No, I don't think it matters at all, because it's not about body count or the number of people that you've had sex with. I think is incredibly irrelevant, because in your relationship, it's about the two of you. The history that you've had doesn't matter. And if you're thinking, oh, I only want a woman who's had sex with a couple people, it's like, well, you could have had sex with, let's say 20 people once. You could have had sex with one person 20 times. And it's not going to change the way that you experience pleasure, but it might change like what you expect. You might have more experience of setting your boundaries and sharing your desires and knowing what it is that you like, and that can be a bonus, right? I don't think that body count is a relevant factor to really even discuss in a relationship.
I guess it's who you've shared your body with in a sense of like, and I guess it comes back to the respect you put on yourself, whether you're just sleeping with people and not respecting yourself, like just say getting drunk and going home with some random dude every night, I guess would be more like if you've slept with 20 people, but they've all been people you've met, you've connected with, you've had a really good time, you've hooked up with, you've parted ways, and you guys are like solid, all good, or you're someone, guy or girl, that is just going to sleep around for the sake of sleeping around and never talks to that person again. It's like, do you see any difference in those two?
Well, I would say that's the quality of the interaction, not necessarily about the number, right? So if you are someone who hasn't been able to, have long-term sexual relationships and you're only having one-night stands, then maybe there's something to think about there, and really reflect on, am I comfortable sharing my body or sharing intimacy? Because a lot of the time it's about intimacy. And if we're comfortable with that, and sometimes it can be really, really difficult to have an ongoing sexual relationship with someone. And so maybe you might be more inclined to do the one-night stands. But I'm not going to judge another person for having had that experience, because I'm not, when we think about like the number and your point of like respecting like your body and like sharing that with someone else, right? Would you say that someone having sex with you is disrespecting themselves by having sex with you?
No.
And so the assumption that we are disrespecting ourselves by having sex with 1, 2, 3, 4, however many people, I think that's an unfair assumption.
I think it's just the situation. If like you're having sex with someone, but like I said, you're real drunk, you actually don't want to do it, you feel pressured, like you're...
For sure. And that just sounds non-consensual to me, right? And if it is that you're having a lot of sexual encounters where you're not remembering it, or you're doing it under the influence, then for sure, that's the poor quality sexual encounter. But again, I'm not necessarily going to judge someone and be like, shit, I don't want to touch you because you have had this experience, right? Having sex with someone doesn't like devalue your worth at all. Like no one can take my sexual worth away from me, no matter how many people I've had sex with in the past. Like that's not something that can be taken away.
Yeah.
Right. And, maybe I've had several friendships that have been really, really toxic. And I'm not going to be like, oh, well, I don't want to have any more friends anymore.
Yeah.
Just because sex is involved, we kind of tend to make even more of a value judgment.
What do you think? So this is kind of going back, I just had a thought then, going back to kind of the OnlyFans thing. If you were in a relationship with someone that had an OnlyFans and was posting stuff, not with you involved, but just them on their own, how do you think you would feel with that? It's like sharing their own intimacy with other people.
Again, it's not for me, it's not something that belongs to me. And so they're not taking anything away from me. I know that, yes,
not
I
taking
have
something away. It's not, I think, okay, so this is, I just look at it, it's like, it's not taking anything away, but it's also giving their intimacy to other people. So I feel like it almost dilutes what you have.
I don't think it dilutes it. I think they're entirely separate things. I think that you can still have such an incredible experience with your partner, and you have this level of intimacy and connection that people online are never going to fully get. As much as you, can curate and make your content as embodied as possible, it's still some level of a performance, right? Because you are charging money for a stranger to see it, right? Yeah. And so I would say that's a fake sort of level of intimacy. It's not real intimacy. It's so different to the connection that you would have with your partner. And so I think it would be different. I might feel uncomfortable. They might be like, oh, I wish that, like he was with me instead right now.
That's what I mean. The whole, it could dilute it in the fact that if he's replying to other girls online, that's time taken away from you and him.
But this is a job, right?
Yeah.
So right now, am I taking time away from my partner because I'm here? Not necessarily.
Well, yes and no. Like you are.
Yeah, he can't hang out with me right now.
Yeah.
But I think just because it has to do with sex, not necessarily. You might have moments, and I can't speak from this with any experience, and someone who has OnlyFans might be able to speak about this. Maybe they're like, I'm tired and I don't want to be touched again today because I've been
D&ming dudes all day. And
Yeah, and like, performing
and
all day.
Yeah.
And then, maybe you are fatigued. Just like you're a builder and you get home and you're like, I really don't want to fucking build a shelf.
Don't want to lay any more pipe.
Yeah, don't want to lay any more pipe
Yeah,
today.
way too much pipe laying today.
Yeah, so that could absolutely come up, I
Yeah.
think. But yeah, I think it's always nuanced.
Yeah, no, I find it so fascinating, especially being up here in this world of it is very much, it's here. It's very much here, and it's like it's here to stay. And obviously, people are making really good money. And I always, like I said, I have no judgment towards people that do it, but it's just going to be interesting to see where it does go, and then obviously how people react to people that do it, and the possible repercussions romantically of doing it. Because that's the thing for me personally. If I met a girl, we got along really well, and then I found out that she had an OnlyFans and she was posting like content all the time and DMing guys all the time, I don't think I could do that. Like that would be a very I have to obviously sit down and have a very why are you doing this? What do you want to get out of it? This is how it makes me feel. I don't want you to stop doing what you feel you need to do, but maybe I'm not emotionally mature enough to go, okay, that's your work, whatever. But I feel, again, possibly selfish for putting my needs above what you feel your needs are. But then it comes back to maybe we're not the right people or person.
Maybe you're not the right match, but I'd also just ask you, what would you make it mean about you and your connection with your partner if they were doing OnlyFans?
What would it mean to me? Again, it'd come back to that. I feel like it would dilute our time and our connection because I feel like sex, obviously all that is very sacred to me. And I feel like if you're putting all of you out there, it's kind of like I like that kind of, I guess, intimacy with someone that's like, this is just kind of for me now.
Yeah.
I like that. And I feel like if that was going out, I would just feel a certain sense of jealousy and maybe a bit of envy, and that would come in, and I feel like I don't know. It's like I have to get put in that situation to see, and obviously it depends on the person and the connection you have with them. But
and how they feel about their work as well, because I think there's a lot of people that'd be like, oh yeah, that's just a job, and I did it, and then I turned off for the day, and now I'm with you, and it hasn't affected me at all. But in terms of jealousy and envy, those are really normal feelings that people can feel a lot of the time, and it's just about how we respond to them and if we make them affect us to a certain degree or not.
Well, exactly. And it's like the same. I can look at it like I used to travel to Europe a lot, and I had girlfriends, and they would be like, okay, you're in Europe, you're at these after parties, you're doing this, I don't get to see you. It's just, again, it's a job. You're doing something. It's going to make someone feel jealous, envious, lonely, isolated. It goes both ways. But the OnlyFans thing, I feel like just very much shines a light on it.
Yeah.
How you're going to react to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, because it is dealing with a very intimate thing.
Yeah.
That typically is shared between only you and your partner in a relationship. But in this case, it's open in a way. But I do think it's a very different style of intimacy, Yeah.
All right. I got a few more questions. We can wrap this up.
Mm-hmm.
But I was going to ask you if you could give one crucial, I know it's such a broad kind of question, but one bit of advice to someone about helping their sexuality, their sex, their connection, what would that be if you were to see someone this is the golden ticket to making this better?
Golden ticket is slow down. Slow the fuck down. There is no race. You don't need to rush. The slower that you approach sex and the slower that you allow yourself to really melt into the moment, the better it's going to be. You can speed it up later if you want to, but start slow.
Oh, was that comedian's name?
Ali Wong.
Ali Wong. Listen, Ali Wong.
You can escalate it as far as you like, but start slow.
I was gonna say, what's the worst bit of advice you've ever gotten?
The worst bit of advice is for people who experience pain during sex. I've had people tell me that their doctor has said, "Oh, just have a glass of wine. Just have a glass of wine, and then you can just get through it." No. If you're experiencing pain, please, there's something going on there.
Yeah. Check that. What's the best bit of advice you've gotten?
The best bit of advice that I've gotten? That's a really good question. I wonder. I think enjoy it and like prioritize your pleasure. This is my own advice. I tell people all the time, prioritize your pleasure, because the more that you're going to enjoy it, especially for women, if you really allow yourself to enjoy it, the whole experience is going to be so much better.
Love it. Yeah. If you could go back to younger self and give them some advice, what would it be?
Oh, okay. Obviously, it's around sexuality. I would tell young Eleanor that it is totally okay to touch your own body and you don't have to feel any shame about it. And don't worry about ever being called a slut, because like that's just a woman who owns her pleasure.
I like that.
Yeah.
What are you scared of?
What am I scared of?
Who let the dogs?
That's going to haunt my dreams, actually.
Imagine you go home and see your boyfriend and just that's the first song that plays. I'm like, what is happening?
Oh my God, just somehow in the ether it's gotten to him and he's like, I need to play I don't know why, I just have this urge. I have to play the song right now.
It's like, whoa, what was that?
Terrifying. Yeah, that's going to haunt my dreams for sure.
Yeah.
What else am I scared of? I'm actually, I don't know why I brought it up earlier, but I'm really scared of scuba diving. It has nothing to do with anything else, but I'm really scared of that.
That's what, just like suffocating or like
it terrifies me. I can't even snorkel. It really scares me.
Was there a reason? Did you try to track that trauma back?
I did. It's so silly, but I went to the Great Barrier Reef when I was a child and like jumped out of the boat, and the first thing I saw was this massive fuck off fish, and I was only like 7, and I saw that giant fish and I freaked out. And I would not go back in the water. And ever since, I like hyperventilate when I try and snorkel, let alone scuba dive.
How creative the trauma that you get.
Yeah, it was just a big fish. It wasn't even like a shark or anything. It was just a big old fish. And I was like,
fuck that, I'm out.
Peace out.
I ain't going back.
Wrap this shit up.
It's funny you say that. It was, I would go surfing and I was always like scared of, again, going underwater and being under it. And when I started to learn how to surf, when I'd get like wipe out and I'd go into the water, I would panic and go super tight, anxious. And I was like, why am I so scared? Like, why am I so terrified of water?
Yeah.
And I thought back, and they had this instance when I was with my friend, my brother and his friend, and we were going down like waterfalls in like rivers. Yeah. And whenever a waterfall, I got churned around this waterfall and I almost drowned. And I like thought back and I was like, it's from that trauma of almost drowning.
Your body remembers.
Yeah. And I was like, that's why. And then a friend of mine helped me actually like deal with it. And one of the good things he said was, when you get wiped out in a wave and you're underwater, just count in your head. And he's like, when you count in your head, you've realized that you're only under for like 3-4 seconds max. Like sometimes a bit longer, but not normally that long. And it gives you that, like, you kind of settle and go 1, 2, oh, I'm up, and then you're out. And you just relax and your body goes limp. Because I was like tensing up and losing breath and I was like, I thought I was going to drown. But it's funny, the trauma of like that big fish and that waterfall that like it hangs with you.
It really does, doesn't it? Yeah, it's wild.
And you need to release it, I guess. Yeah, how you release it. Yeah. All right, last question. How do you want to be remembered when you're not here anymore?
Well, I think that my legacy is already set in stone as teaching hundreds of people how to give the best head ever. So I'm happy with that. It's a weird legacy, but I'm fine with it. I think I'd also really, really appreciate being remembered as someone who had a really big impact on people's access to pleasure and feeling like they really deserve pleasure. I
guess that's a good way to put it. It's like you're someone that wants to be remembered as someone that gave people the keys to opening up more pleasure in their life.
Yeah, absolutely. And not feeling shame as well about being a sexual person and enjoying sex and pleasure and desiring it. So many people just won't let themselves explore pleasure because we don't feel like we deserve it, but everyone deserves pleasure. Like our bodies are built for it, you know, like here we exist in these bodies, like utilize them. Yeah, use it. Don't hide from it. Yeah. All right, Eleanor, thank you so much for coming on. Before you go, what's your plans now? What's happening with you? Are you got like events coming up? Are you speaking? Where do people find you, and what are you doing? Yeah, okay. Well, you can find me on Instagram at Eleanor Hadley. Website is the same, eleanorhadley.com. And what do I have coming up? I'm working on a program at the moment all about lust and libido. Libido is the biggest topic I get questions about, and sex drive, and like, why don't I desire sex as much as my partner or vice versa? So I'm creating that. That's kind of what I'm focusing on right now, and that'll be released as soon as I'm done, whenever it is. Near future? Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much. I had such a great chat.
Yay, thanks for having me.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.